Yeah.
Are either one of these any good?
I don't watch movies.
Well, have you heard anything about either one of them?
I find it's best to stay out of other people's affairs.
You mean you haven't heard anybody say anything about either one of these?
Nope.
Well, what about these two?
Oh, they suck.
In this lesson, I'd like to go over words and expressions you can use when you discuss movies with other people.
Oh, dude, tubular.
As far as I know, everybody loves movies. I love movies, I'm sure you love movies. And there's lots of words that have to do with movies that you might not be familiar with, but they're very good to know if you want to talk about movies with your friends or whoever.
No way. Yes way, Ted!
Yeah.
So, you guys think you can pull one over on me, huh? Huh? You got everybody synced to the same bullshit story.
This isn't bullshit. This is a Pershing missile chip.
It's Chet. My name is Chet. And I didn't think it was a whale's dick, honey.
I think that sex is overrated. I think that people place far too much importance on it. And I think that stuff about women want it just as bad as men is crap. I mean, I think that women want it, I just don't think that they want it for the same reason that men think they do.
I've whipped up this nasty little soiree over at his friend Wyatt's house.
Swore what?
Soiree, honey, I think that means, party. Party. You know, there's gonna be sex, drugs, rock and roll, chips, dips, chains, whips. You know, your basic high school orgy type of thing. I mean, I'm not talking candle wax on the nipples or witchcraft or anything like that. No. Just a couple of 100 kids running around in their underwear, acting like complete animals.
Now that ain't working, that's the way you do it. Let me tell you, damn guys ain't dumb. Maybe get a pistol on your little finger. Maybe get a blister on your thumb.
Did he ask me to take my clothes off? No, he didn't.
Did you take your clothes off?
Yes, I did.
Cynthia,
What?
why did you do that?
Because I wanted to.
But why did you want to?
Because I wanted him to see me.
You're crazy. Did he touch you?
No.
Did you touch him?
No.
Did anybody touch anybody?
Well, yes.
Don't tell me. Don't tell me. Don't tell me. You didn't.
I did.
You didn't.
I did.
You didn't.
I did.
We watch the movies, color TV.
Yeah.
First time in my life, I don't feel like a total dick.
Yeah, me either.
Did you look up why? I mean, is it just rights to the movie? Why it's just not, you know, it's not out there. Yeah, oh.
Yeah, this movie was like one of the first Miramax, acquisitions as far as distribution goes.
Wow.
You know, back when they used to work the festival circuit.
Yeah.
And, like Cannes and Sundance and all that kind of stuff. And this is...
it won Palme d'Or.
Oh, yeah. It swept the Cannes Film Festival. And, like, this is one of the...
Distribution-wise, why is it not being out there now? I mean, like, is this on the... it's not even on the circuit at all for being put out there in Blu-ray or Criterion or anything?
It's not, like, it's
wow.
just kind of lost out there, you know. But I mean, but it was a lot of firsts, you know. I can't wait to get into it. But but yeah, I'm extremely excited to talk about both these filmmakers. Let's see. Here we go. That's us right there. What's going on, man? Good to see you, brother. Good to see you.
Welcome back.
Yes. It's
let's make a videotape, Charles.
No, yeah, that's we've been off for a week, so it's been about 2 weeks since we talked last. Man, you been good, man?
We wrapped up Fear 4 solid weeks of packed great content with guests and having fun, and took a little week off and we're back at it, man.
Man, there's just been in our neck of the woods, there's just been tons of rain. Especially working in an airport. I had a specifically very bad day during the rain. There's, you know, of course you have to work outside, you know, at the airport.
Yeah.
And I got caught outside at the moment that it was like raining like the hardest, like fucking monsoon levels of rain.
Yeah.
And I was just soaked to the bone. We're in like 3 layers. And it soaked through all of those layers. And like my shoes were squeaking and squishing and all that kind of stuff. I hated that day. I want to say it was probably last Friday. Man, I was hating life. I didn't want to get in my car, nothing. And I don't know if you know this about me, but I hate the rain. Like just rain in general. If it didn't literally moisturize the planet, I wish it would just go away. You know, like it's.
There's a song about that. I can't stand the rain.
I can't, man. I hate being stuck in the rain. I hate being rained on.
I'm actually, you know, that's where we differ. I like a good rainstorm. I took a nap, I think, during that Friday rainstorm you're talking about.
Wow.
I don't go to work till 8 on Fridays, 8 p.m.
Okay.
So I remember that rainstorm hit in the midday, and I was like, I'm taking the most glorious nap of my life.
No.
So I open all the windows, rain, loving it. You know, you need the rain. You can't have sunshine without rain, Charles.
If every day is a sunny day, then what's a sunny day? Absolutely. No, I do have an intro to get to though, so let's make sure we knock this thing out. Here we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Spittin Tha Reel Sh, the only weekly movie podcast made exclusively by, for, and about the online Facebook group The Reel Shit. And you are catching us on a very special day because this is our 89th episode ever. And this week, we are continuing our decade double feature series, and the next stop is the 1980s. Along with a few history points and recommendations, we also watched 2 movies to commemorate the time. 1985's Weird Science, directed by the icon John Hughes, R.I.P., and also Steven Soderbergh's 1989 feature debut, Sex, Lies, and Videotape. We break down these films as well as the return of the dreaded one-sentence review. My name is Charlie Thompson, founder, administrator, and bracket master of The Reel Shit, and joining me, as always, is my co-host and fellow administrator, one of Mike Dexter's boys, the Midnight Movie Maniac himself, Ryland Johnson. What's going on, man?
Oh, we're talking 80s, the greatest decade to ever exist, because I was born in it. The movies were great. The sports were great. Everything was awesome. The music. What a decade to talk about. You know me. I could talk about the 80s probably for 6 shows, but let's try to keep it. Let's try to keep it under 3 hours.
Well, I mean, I did want to set aside some time later on, to just kind of, parse that out. Give some recommendations of some 80s movies. Maybe talk about the time, like why these movies look this certain way. I'd love to talk about that. But I was going to actually talk to you about the Weird Al movie, but you told me you haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. It's on my list. I didn't know until today that it was a Roku exclusive. So,
yeah, you can't.
but we've both shared, that we grew up being Weird Al fans. I always thought every song he came out with was just straight hilarious. His lyrics and everything were so on point, and he mimicked the song almost to a T. So he's an artist in itself. But yeah, I'm really curious to see what what Harry Potter can do as being the lead role, because I just don't see him just as Weird Al. But you know what? It's acting. You can do anything.
Well, I got to say, first and foremost about the movie is that whatever your expectations are as far as a straight up biopic, those need to go out the window immediately. Like, there's nothing. I mean, besides maybe some costume choices. I mean, there's not a whole lot of realism in any of these characters, So,
in Weird Al sense, in Weird Al fashion, that makes sense.
Right?
So.
Yeah, but I praise the movie. I think it's bold. I think it's a bold move. I think it's a bold comedy, like the joke, the bit itself, on the whole, great. I thought chef's kiss. Thought it was so good.
Are they going Man on the Moon with it? Kind of Man on the Moon-esque, or
no? They're actually
what happened?
They're actually kind of going pretty Weird Al with it. If I can tell you the truth.
Okay.
It seems like such a Weird Al joke. The whole thing. Okay. It seems so Weird Al. Just like you. I'm outrageous Weird Al fan. I'm not sure when you what was your first Weird Al?
I want to say I'm Fat. That was the music video that I always really every time it was on, I was just so oh, it's so funny and so on point, and also I think the song though that really was the White Stuff. When I was a kid, I had a cassette tape of Weird Al, and my sister was such a New Kids on the Block fan that I listened to that and just thought it was hilarious.
Okay, the White Stuff.
I was trolling my sister. Yeah, the White Stuff. I was trolling my sister in my room with my cassette player to her New Kids on the Block. So.
Okay, yeah, and you got caught up with the tapes. I remember the tape was where I first heard Weird Al. It was the Nirvana one, the Smells Like Nirvana, and then that whole record. I think that record has the White Stuff on it as well.
And
so I fell in love. I wanted to hear everything. I wanted to hear every song he's ever made. I want to hear it just to say I did. I was engrossed with the guy. So yeah, a lot of stock. I even listened to an entire podcast where they reviewed each song in alphabetical order. That's how dedicated I am. All right. But yes.
I mean, he's been in the industry a long time. He's got a crazy career. It's one of the most unconventional careers you can imagine. Right. And he's still going, which is cool. And I heard he's a pretty solid guy in the industry. So.
Oh, I mean, yeah, he grinds. He never really tried to parlay his music career into something else. It was always a music career. And so there's a lot of people that don't do that. They use music as a way to start acting or start a foundation or some shit. But no, Weird Al's a musician.
Well, I mean, he is an actor too. I mean, VHF. I mean, VHF.
UHF
was one of those weird, or UHF. I knew I was going to get that wrong. Was just one of those weird, quirky films I remember seeing way back and just liking it, knowing it was Weird Al, but not knowing. I don't know. It was just this weird fever dream of a movie for me as a kid.
That movie came out in '89, so we're in good company here with the '80s.
Oh yeah. Hey, '89's a great year for movies.
Absolutely, absolutely.
It's up there.
We do have a game and some group talk to get to, but I don't know if you wanted to talk about the 1980s right now. Just kind of revel in this time. I wish Malden was here to help us commemorate this time, but it's just you and me tonight.
Oh, Malden and Boat, and these guys that Boat's the 80s action expert of the group, I think, because there's just so much in this decade. It's kind of a franchise starter decade. Yeah. There's so much that is still going. I mean, Raiders, Indiana Jones started in '80, and he's just now about to put out his fifth movie, spanning 40 something years. It's crazy. So there's just so much that the 80s have brought to cinema and to Hollywood. And it's coming off the 70s. It's coming off a very volatile, really, really dark, director-driven decade to more of a, this is the 80s, man. We're gonna have some fun. Let's spend a lot more money on movies and make them big again and make them summer blockbusters, and let's appeal to kids and families more. That's what drives sales, and that's what the movie theaters really, really took off in the 80s, I think, because of family movies, franchises, the Spielbergs and the big directors that really knew how to hit both ends of making E.T. is a kids movie, but adults can enjoy it too. I mean, it makes a lot of money.
Right. Well, I mean, I guess I wager to say that those filmmakers from the 70s that were so bombastic in their vision, the decade of the decadence. I mean, if they made their mark in the 70s, I mean, they definitely made their money in the 80s.
Yeah.
Like they were the ones that were helming these big budget projects. Like Spielberg got all the money in the world, Lucas got all the money in the world. You said you had De Palma getting big projects. You had, Scorsese still doing big projects. A lot more trust from the studios, especially with the budget.
Yeah.
was going to these visionary directors. And especially 1980. I mean, you got Scarface, Brian De Palma, out the gate. This gangster epic.
Yeah.
Not to mention Sergio Leone. He put out his own gangster film called Once Upon a Time in America. That's really good.
Amazing.
So you could kind of mark the early 80s as kind of like the end of the gangster era, ceremoniously. And then that's when we get into more of the rough and tumble, communism versus, the big one-man army type of situation. I guess. Yeah,
I mean, special effects too. I mean, it blew up in the 80s. You see films, Star Wars, of course in 77, but that was that really, really took off, and I think in 80 and above, and throughout that entire decade, you see some insane set pieces and practical effects that you just don't see anymore because of the advent of the computer and what they could do in the 90s, which you see in mid 90s Jurassic Park kind of stuff. But in the 80s, they're still doing little miniatures and sets, and there's so many cool pictures that I love that I share on the Real Shit of these crazy epic Blade Runner sets, and Batman '89 was just a physical set, but a lot of this is miniature stuff that they were doing then. But just the technicality of stuff back then, the behind the scenes, and what it took to make these crazy sci-fi films or these crazy really big action films look the way they do. Yeah. It blew my mind as a kid. It was so much fun. I feel like they were made for the movie theater,
Yeah. I wish I had the same experience you did, but no, I wasn't really mesmerized by the movies like that. I was more going to see what my parents wanted to go see, and that was like courtroom dramas and like cowboy movies and stuff like that, So like the whole blockbuster 80s thing, I didn't get any of that. Like I remember you talking about 89 being your like Renaissance year or whatever. Like no, it wasn't like that for me at all in 89. I like the
it was, I was still a young guy. I mean, 89, I'm barely 6 years old then, and I remember it being that spark in my head of seeing the Batmans and the Indiana Jones in a theater. we had had movies at the house, and then in the next 3, 4, 5 years, you get the rentals of all the great 80s classics that have been sitting around the house for a while, and people, your friends trade them, and so you've seen most of the good movies of the last decade by the early 90s when I was really, really focusing on catching movies at home on VHS or renting them from Blockbuster. But it's just such a fun. This is right before the internet took off, right before CGI took off, and I think the 80s just encompasses. I mean, the music, the soundtracks, I mean, it really, really appealed to a lot of the general population with movies in the 80s. A lot of people think of, great 80s pop music and, the Ferris Buellers and the Breakfast Clubs, the John Hughes, of course. I mean, he's spectacular at picking these iconic songs for his movies that, I'm a big sound and score and music in movies. I think it's crucial in some instances, and also just may not be crucial for the storyline for some, but it really, really bumps that film up to another whole, point or two just because of the music. So,
well,
you being a music guy, I mean, are you an 80s music fan? Yeah, not. I mean, it's too poppy for you. It's too feel good, too cheesy.
I'm gonna be honest with you. Like when it comes to like the 80s and the 90s, especially the early 90s, it all just kind of blends together for me. I guess like my parents were such on a schedule, and it was always like go here, go there, blah blah blah, and like my old man, he like dominated the TV, so it was like whatever this dude wanted to watch, So the only
no MTV
right,
for
but
you.
I mean, like I said, we still had Showtime, but it was still being commanded by the dad, So I was at the mercy of his programming,
Right.
And so it just like as far as those cultural touchstones, like I remember like my brother being all super excited about them showing Star Wars on the USA Network, like in the early 90s. But not having any kind of concept of like when those movies came out or even if they were associated with Star Trek, like this is how deep away from all of that I was. Like I was like, oh, that sounds like a fun movie, but I never really got into the whole lore of it, the appeal of it. The appeal of it. Like it never really got me until, much later. And then so like to hear people's memories of these things, I'm like, I just sit there with a smile. I'm like, cool. Like my cataloging didn't start until like the 90s, so.
Yeah. It's funny how much nostalgia has gone into the 80s of late. You see a lot of that now. And I try to put it in perspective. I'm like, so were people that nostalgic about the 50s and 60s when we were growing up? I mean, was that a thing? Or is this just, because I know 80s just were, people are nostalgic about the times they were kids because generally it's a happier time for most people, or you just remember the good times of not having to pay bills and having rent and the stress of life. So I wonder if our parents were nostalgic about, the 60s and 70s when we were kids, maybe. I don't know.
No, I mean, like my from what I understand, my parents were like little hippies, like just growing up in the 70s, where that counterculture had already happened, and now the style was hitting and all that kind of stuff, and then the 80s, they became parents and they started being responsible, just workers, just making money, stacking paper, and how they got their entertainment was just watching TV, and so I got a lot of movies in, but I can't tell you like if it was new or if it wasn't. Like I remember like Teen Wolf would come my way, like Revenge of the Nerds would come my way. I mean, they would all be entertaining movies, but I would never timestamp them, like that. Yeah. I just kind of.
But as an overall feel, 80s, do they not have a general kind of a good, feel good kind of vibe? There's not a lot, like there's definitely some great drama movies from the 80s, but most of the classics that people think of, the Back to the Futures and they're just they're these really uplifting, everything's great kind of movies. They're fun. There's a lot of coming of age, a lot of teen angst, a lot of teen comedies that have come out in this generation, but there's also a lot of like my generation of like just lone wolf action guy. I mean, you're talking Rambo and Commando and Predator, and then you get Jean-Claude Van Damme with Bloodsport and Kickboxer, and this is the kind of shit that I was all into. So the 80s is just excess. It's everything was just great. If you're making a child, never-ending story, these epic, child stories that kids movies we can talk about forever. I mean, we saw some fucked up, I think 80s children's films. I mean, never-ending story. I still have nightmares about our attacks in the swamp. I mean, it's some of the shit they hit us with. I mean, Littlefoot's mom dying and uh, it was.
Well, do you?
It was a funky a decade for movies, but it was also just so much fun.
Were you did you have like a daycare that you went to, or like you got left with like like a babysitter? Like I'm not sure how like you came up.
I had very young parents that my parents had me at 21, so yeah, I had very young working parents.
Okay.
And I stayed with my grandma on my mom's side when I could. But I do remember very fond little, like those very first memories of a kinder care. That they're still around. I think it seemed like I've seen them before around. But you know what the weirdest memory of kinder care for me was there was this kid that sat next to me. I must have been 4 years old. Okay. And they fed us hot dogs and, green beans or whatever for lunch one day. He was maybe a year older than me, and he bit all the skin off the hot dog and then put it down there like it was his dick. And I just remember being like, that's the funniest shit I've ever seen in my life. Like, it was the first class clown that I ever, and it was my first and my only memory of being in daycare because I think I was only in daycare for maybe 5-6 months while my parents were trying to figure out their schedules or switching jobs. It was a very short stint.
Okay.
I mean, I remember not knowing my ABCs, and everyone else did. I remember going A, B. Fuck. But the kid who ate all the skin off a hot dog, man, I want to know what that kid's doing right now.
Holla at me, yeah.
Weird memory, a tangent, but I had to
it's all
say
good. No, I was gonna say I watched a lot of these movies, like in like childcare, like just wasting time. Got a couple hours for mom and dad.
Just PG, put in a PG movie.
I watched E.T. for the first time in daycare. Let's see, what else did I watch? Like I watched Fox and the Hound first time in daycare.
Mm-hmm. I mean, 80s Disney really hit hard. Late 80s, you had the Little Mermaid. I think it was 89. Mm-hmm. You had what was the one before Mermaid?
That was Fox and the Hound. Yeah.
Anyways, yeah. I mean, so when you had a rainy day in elementary school, they were popping in PG films. Yeah. But there's plenty of kids movies in the 80s that I grew up on, but they weren't ones they were put in school. They were I was watching Labyrinth and Never Ending Story and Land Before Time. And
well, that's funny because I did watch Never Ending Story in school. I watched Labyrinth in school, but they would never show like a Star Wars or Indiana Jones or Gremlins. Nah. Nothing like that. No. So I eventually came upon those. Those decade defining franchise films. Like I could have taken them or left them. In there, and when we were talking about the memories of the 80s versus the 90s, I apologize for my fuzzy memory, but yeah, it always kind of came off as like a launching pad, like I remember like Little Mermaid came out, and I was like Little Mermaid, like that was the shit, and I remember like once a year or once every 2 years, like the kids got like one movie. Like one tentpole movie, and like that was the one everybody they painted like the windows of the theater, to make it like Aladdin or whatever, and like kids just waited for Aladdin to come out, and then they just loved it, and I roll my eyes nowadays when they talk about the Moanas and all these other newer films, but I was just as giddy as these other kids are.
Oh, Disney's like late 80 to mid 90 run is epic. There's there's some like all the bangers are in there, but yeah, and I mean we were lucky to have I'm like mid 80s kid, so I was just lucky enough to be able to rent these movies in the 80s that I really really adored. The franchise stuff, Ghostbusters 1 and 2 were big for me, and any Lucas and Spielberg film. I mean, the list is I could go through all these 80s films. I like. I mean, everybody likes the Goonies and the classic 80s staples. But it's just there's so much in it. There's so much packed into that one decade. I mean, I could go on about 80s anime. I've just started getting more into 80s and 90s anime, and I feel like the 80s is just full of some really, really artistic stuff.
We're losing him. We're losing him to anime. Shit. Shit. No.
I'm getting pulled in all directions, man.
No, and I guess I wanted to shout out just a few things, about the 80s. One being like I said, some of these older stars, along with the older, filmmakers, like your Jack Nicholsons, your Robert Duvalls, all these people were becoming like the fathers and the grandfathers, of the story, and then the people before them, like your Jimmy Stewarts and your Henry Fondas, like they were getting like the esteemed old man roles, like on Golden Pond is a great 80s film where Jane Fonda stars with her father, Henry Fonda, and Katharine Hepburn as like her parents, and who were like, I did. It's like a reconciliation type story. Like if that kind of thing like really piques your interest, On Golden Pond is a great example of just good filmmaking, a great idea for a film, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. I guess a filmmaker I don't really care much about, never have, but he's very prominent, is Tim Burton, which he got his start in the 80s. Yeah. We got Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Love Tim Burton. I mean, Pee-wee, 85, right? Pee-wee's 85?
It's, mid 80s for sure. But that was one of the ones that came on Showtime and we taped, and I would watch it over and over and over again. And it was just like a fever dream almost. Like just, like your undeveloped brain, like trying to process all of that. Like it's some of it's scary to you, like the clown and the handcuffs and all that early stuff. Like if you have no context and it's just coming at you.
It's exactly what happened the first time I watched Pee-wee. I was like, I didn't get it. I thought it was going to be a quirky little kids film, and it was like, it scared the shit out of me. What was it? What's the lady? What's her name?
Large Marge.
The scary big Large Marge. I couldn't think of her name. I mean, just this dark comedy that I didn't get as a kid, and it did scare me. I remember that.
And like just the scene with the rich kid in the pool, like just all of that, like that really shook my shit up. I was like, and then like the gum, like with the ink coming out of the mouth with the gum, like that freaked me the fuck out, And then later on in the 80s, you got your Beetlejuice, your Michael Keaton favorite, and that just kind of cemented, especially the practical effects, like you were talking about before, like he really utilized a lot of that. Tim Burton did, especially because he was big into sculpture, and Edward Scissorhands came at the beginning of the next decade. But he also directed one more film before he got super Burtonized, and that was Batman. Michael Keaton, Jack Nicholson, like I said, older role. He's able to make all this money now. He's established himself, like that. That's a whole other part of Hollywood. That I mean, these 70s cats were making tons of money. During the 80s, while all the young kids were laying the groundwork. These Swayzes and these Sheens and all these other people. There were the young kids that are older now.
Sways. Rest in peace, Sways.
Like, I can't stress that enough. And I wish we had those old stars, still around. I mean, I kind of sound like you now. I wish we still had these people around.
Sways.
Swayze. But yeah.
When I get to heaven, Charlie, I just want a roundhouse kick straight to the face from Dalton.
No.
I made it.
And I had a couple more notes about the 80s before we move on. I don't know if you had anything.
Yeah, man. It's just, I've said it all. It's a feel good thing for me. It's got so many classics in it that I really, it's there. I remember somebody posted that, like, what are your top 5 like feel good movies,
Yeah.
And I think most of mine are these movies that I rented over and over and over again as a kid that just, either appealed to comedy. I love action. I mean, and I got into some hardcore, to me at the time, hardcore action. Road Warrior and stuff, which we'll talk, it was a little tie into Weird Science and Road Warrior. But there's also, I have a list that's so long, it's like crazy. I mean, stuff like Short Circuit like The Last Dragon, Bruce Leroy, like things that are in the 80s canon, but not a lot of people have seen. The Last Dragon, or some people remember Short Circuit barely, or some of these great fantasy films that I loved. Willow. I mean, Willow's one of my all-time favorite fantasy style. Val Kilmer slays in that one. But it's just, the list goes on and on. I mean, it's the best decade for movies. I'm sorry. I love the 90s. I think there's more weight to the 90s. I think there's better films in the 90s, but I think just the 80s as a whole, everybody was just having a really good fucking time. It wasn't too serious. There's some really, really, really good dramatic. I'm not taking anything away from Meryl Streep in the 80s and good acting, and there was some good acting in there.
Right.
But the meat and potatoes of the 80s, the hitting on all cylinders in the 80s was your franchises, your Back to the Future 2, your Indiana Jones and the Last Crusades. These kind of films really cemented the 80s to me. E.T.'s, your family oriented films that were action packed and adventurous and awe-inspiring and franchise making. So
that's awesome. No, I was just going to mention two more things. One, if you look at the Best Picture winners of the 1980s, there's not a whole lot of like creative diversity in there. It's a lot of like period pieces. That
I know. I looked at that. I looked at the same thing, and that threw me off. I was like, "Whoa!" I mean,
like Gandhi.
There's some good films, like great, but Amadeus
Yeah.
and very different.
Large budgets.
The Oscar winners were, yes, but to me, didn't really encompass what I thought the 80s were as a decade of cinema.
Right. No, and and near the end, you got a little bit more scaled down. Like Rain Man ended up winning. Driving Miss Daisy got the Best Picture win at the end of the decade. And so, but like near the beginning and the middle, like there was no way a 16 Candles was going to be respected in that way.
Yeah.
To where it was going to win gold at the Oscars. Like their success came through the cult following. But
which is sad. I mean, that's what timing is in life, and you put 16 Candles out now. What I'm saying, you just kind of in our kind of world that we live in now. Oh God, I mean, so much better than most of those Oscar winners in the 80s. In my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, one of my favorite teen comedies that we're going to talk about here in a little bit is Lady Bird, that came out in 2017. And that's just total shades of 16 Candles.
Yep.
And so like it's made its mark on pop culture. It's definitely cemented itself as like a reason to go to the movies, a reason to watch movies. Just that extra element of just creativity, fun, positivity. It all worked out for everybody. Like those kind of endings you never see anymore. In film. I mean, because it's there's been too much reality dropped on us. But back in the day, it was like it was a good little moral story.
Thumbs up, dude.
Like, hey, we succeeded. It's so good.
We won the race at the end. I got the girl. Yeah.
I kicked that.
And then you jump and you freeze.
I kicked
like
that
this.
dude in the face. I got the trophy. Yeah.
The bully got his. I got mine. We out. Cue the shitty 80s, credits.
Like one of my favorite 80s movies of all time is Summer School. And Mark Harmon, so good. And that's
all the practical effects in that. Being a horror kid, a gore kid, I was like, what? There's all sorts of gore in this because they do when all the kids are acting like they're dead. I thought that was cool.
I had a point. I forgot what it was though. No, the happy ending, where at the beginning, he thought he knew happiness, but then it crumbled around him. But he rebuilt it, and everything's going to be all right. He got Kirstie Alley. He got a full-time teaching job. He's a cherished teacher. Like it's those kinds of setup to an ending. It's like every popular 80s movie that you can think of kind of ends like a Full House episode. Like it's just there's a moral to be learned. They learn it, and then they're better off for it. And it's
G.I. Joe. Knowing's half the battle.
It's those kinds of movies that existed and were lauded. Because there wasn't a whole lot of cynicism in the world, yet. It was still kind of very positive, and everybody was making money, and so it was just a time where creativity blossomed, but the cynicism and the darker end came later, but
the realism. There's not a lot of realism.
No.
In the 80s,
there is, but it's kind of squelched out by the popular, the popularity of the time, which was, just feel good stuff. That's the thing that ran everything. I mean, you could still say that's the thing that runs this, nowadays. I mean, think about all the big budget Disney stuff they've made. But now it just comes off as like hokey or for kids, whereas back in the 80s it was for everyone. Like everyone could enjoy it, take a piece of it, and learn something from it, and then just appreciate a good 90-minute movie. That's.
Yeah.
I wish we could talk more and more about the 80s. We could quote 80s constantly if we wanted to, but we do have a show to do here. So
much.
But next thing I wanted to do is I want to talk about the group for a little bit, and I have a video. I'm going to do that right now.
You guys know this one? Oh, now this is the real shit.
Gentlemen, you have my curiosity. Now you have my attention.
I came there with my dick in my hand. Don't make me lift me with my foot in your ass. Be cool.
All right.
Do you think Snake would just murk him? Snake would murk him like bam, not even a question.
So while the video is playing, Ryland asked me who would win in a fight, Jack Burton or Snake Plissken. I said hands down Snake Plissken. But Ryland is rather impressed with Jack Burton's just ability to succeed.
So that's the way to put it.
It is, like that was
no knife boots allowed. No knife boots, no weapons. Just, them and their cunning.
It was a one in a million shot, grabbing that knife and throwing it back and hitting him right between the eyes. One.
I like how even he's surprised. He's like, oh shit. Yeah, fucking did that.
But as far as the group goes, guys, I wanted to give a big shout out to the brand new bracket champion, The Exorcist, winning the 70s horror bracket. Going to show some love to The Exorcist. Well deserved, well fought. Bested a lot of major titles to get where it's at. It defeated Carrie in the very end of the finals. It now has a 1 in 16 spot of becoming the ultimate bracket champion alongside Shawshank Redemption, the first ever. We're going to decide that as time will tell, because we have 4 more brackets left until we start our second ever bracket of champions. And I'm excited to continue the talk of the teen comedy being the subject of the next bracket. It's kind of fitting that we did Weird Science tonight to kind of commemorate that. I've actually been trying to engage the audience, before the bracket starts. Like what exactly defines a teen comedy? Like I threw out a couple of oddballs. I think one of them was Rookie of the Year. The other one was My Boyfriend's Back, the old zombie flick. I would love to hear your opinion on both of those. What do you think?
Rookie of the Year, I love that movie. It involves the kids or teens. I get it, but it's really a story about a kid, his mother, and growing up. And it's a sports movie mixed in with it. I would say, if are you doing is this a 16 or a 32? I mean, how many? Well,
inches? I mean, it kind of depends on how flimsy I can be with it. If it's a little bit hard nosed, I'll go to 16. But if they're a little bit loosey goosey, 32. Just have some fun with it.
I think if you did 32, you started getting into the realm of your Rookie of the Year, or the other film was what'd you say?
Oh, My Boyfriend's Back.
My Boyfriend's Back, which is that Bill Paxton? No.
no, it's a zombie film. It's like a zombie comedy.
Who plays the zombie?
It's a no-name kid.
Yeah. Okay, no, I don't know. I'm thinking of a different film.
Okay.
I don't know. I haven't seen that one.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, there's always little variables, like the movie Rushmore, Wes Anderson flick.
Yeah.
You know, is that a teen comedy? You know, like it's definitely a teen something. You know,
my comment on your post got 9 likes of me saying I feel like it has to involve school, somewhat. I mean, some type of high school, either based in the school, high school friends, group of friends, and then some type of angst, some type of coming of age story. You know, the Dazed and Confused kind of setting where everybody's in high school and they're dealing with high school shit and there's a big party. You know, those are the ones you always think of when it comes to teen comedies. I feel like it has to involve high school, a major party, and a bunch of really bad, you know, just cheesy, corny, slapstick jokes.
What about like the idea of just sex being a focal point of the goal or the motivation behind the story?
Absolutely. I mean, sexual tension. I mean, that's coming of age. Coming of age always has to do with puberty. Even Risky Business, you know, is to me somewhat of that kind of realm. Yeah, I mean, I grew up with liking stuff like I'm just thinking of the early 2000s as the college one with James Van Der Beek. I just can't. The title right now is leaving me.
Varsity Blues?
No. The one where they're all in college and it's like it's more
Dead Man on Campus?
A view of each college. No. It has James Van Der Beek and it has the girl from Knight's Tale and it has
That's not a comedy.
No, but I'm saying it's that same style of school coming of age. I know it's not a comedy, but there's some funny ass shit in that movie. What's it called?
The Rules of Attraction.
Rules of Attraction. No, it's not a comedy by any means, but there's really some funny shit in that movie.
Would you know that's an offshoot of American Psycho? The guy
Really?
who plays Van Der Beek's character.
Yeah, Van Der Beek does the Kubrick stare in it really well.
His last name is Bateman. They say that he's like a relative of Patrick Bateman.
It's not a traditional comedy, that film, but it's a quirky. I mean, not quirky. It's an indie weird. I like what's the actor's name that was eventually in the movie Driven with Stallone, the blonde-headed kid who plays Sunshine.
What? The Driven movie?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, of course, but why would anyone remember that movie?
Because it
is not.
It's got Sylvester Stallone drives a Indy car down the street, bro. It's awesome.
I was not impressed with that movie at all.
No, that movie sucks. I'm just trying to think of the actor's name, but not important. That will not be on the list. We're talking about teen comedies. What is your favorite teen comedy, if you have one?
You know, I don't think I have a favorite teen comedy. Well, I mean, I guess I'm still trying to figure out. Go ahead.
For our early generation, you know, we graduated the same year. Were you a road trip kid or were you a Euro trip kid? How about that?
Road trip.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like Euro trip better.
Just to be a naysayer? It's not a very good movie. I guess they're both not very good movies.
But that's what we grew up on. We grew up on the American Pies and the road trips and the Euro trips, and that's our generation stuff. Then you got Porky's and other things.
Well, right. I mean, but that's what I'm talking about. Like, are we separating the college from the high school and still calling it teen?
Yeah.
I
mean, you're still a teenager in college for 2 years. I mean,
right. You know, so I mean, there is a gray area there. You know, so I mean, but you're guaranteed teen in high school. So maybe that's more of what people are kind of thinking about. You know, like school time versus free time versus, you know, the wacky hijinks or whatever. You know, it's a good blend of all three, I guess. But yeah, so I wanted to announce it, guys. The bracket preview for the teen comedy bracket is going to be November 18th. And we start voting on November 29th. All right, so I'm going to have a preview. We have 11 days to get in whatever movies you need to get in. These are going to be, you know, fairly popular titles, so rest easy. You don't have to do too much digging. But yeah, that's the 18th, 29th. It pops off. So that you heard it here. You heard it first here on Spittin' Tha Reel Shit. The other big thing that I wanted to talk about was the brand new Real Shit TikTok account that I've been working day and night on ideas just to try and fill that page. If you are a listener of the podcast, if you are on TikTok, I sure would appreciate a like or a follow, guys. It's I'm trying to be as entertaining as possible. I'm the page. It's very Gen X-y type of stuff. So it's nothing like super snobby. We're just trying to have fun with movies. So I would love a good follow if you check out the page. Give whatever feedback you can, because I'm trying to make this as successful as possible. And the only way to keep doing it on TikTok is to just keep posting. Just stay tuned with that. I'm trying to share posts from TikTok to the Real Shit Facebook page. So I'm doing my best to try and get as many views as I can. But yeah, it's one of the biggest things I've been working on since our last episode, which was
that's the new forum, right? Is that the new forum?
Well, I mean
TikTok's kind of the big thing.
Well, it is right now, so might as well capitalize on it.
Yeah.
Until something happens. Something else comes out that's better and everybody just goes there. But it's a real creative space, to try and you just have an idea, you want to realize it, you have the ability to if you can. So I implore anybody. Matt Teeter, one of our moderators, he's a content creator for TikTok. He's constantly posting just different ideas, and that's what I'm trying to do as well. So if you want to support your page, you want to support your movie fan page, your podcast, your group that you've been a part of for however long, give us a follow on TikTok. We sure would appreciate it at The Real Shit. You can find the link on the Facebook page, on the YouTube page. All the links are connected now. So we're trying to branch out. We're not just trying to be a Facebook page no more. We're trying to be the real shit. You know what I'm saying? I'm excited. I'm excited about it.
We want to be in the Real Shit metaverse. We're creating a whole world here
of just making fun of old 80s movies. Yes, I love it. But that's all the group news I have. But before we went any further, I wanted to see if you wanted to play a game with me, Ryland. Are you ready to play a game?
Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm gonna knock it out of the park.
This week, it's a
hot seat game today, guys.
Special game. We've only played this game a few times, but it has a special meaning in our hearts because it was the very first game we ever played on the very first episode of Spittin' Tha Reel Shit, and
it shows.
and so it's called the One Sentence Review, and the challenge is that we throw out a popular movie. And our task is to try and review the movie in one sentence. Just try and give it as much prestige as you can, or as much shitting on it as you can, with just a few words. A subject and a predicate. And so that's the challenge. There's been a lot of run-on sentences in the history of this game. But that's just to be, that's part of the fun of the game, It's seeing somebody try and see if they can get it in one sentence. And we opted to let it be in this space that we reveal what the movies are. We have to think on our feet.
In true, live, it's live to us, true live fashion.
So
I said, let's just go with it. And we have to be seasoned veterans from episode 1 to episode 89, folks.
But we only played. We've only played the game about 4 times, though.
If I freeze up, what have I been doing all these 88 episodes? It is tough when we have done it where we have known which guys what 8 I have versus what 80 has, so you can come up with this very intellectual, very high vocabulary review that just nails it in 8 words. But it's really hard to do on the spot, so let's just go. Let's just try our best.
So do you want to be in the hot seat first, or do you want to do the rapid fire to me first?
Do you want me to give you all 8, and are we going to do 4 and 4? What do you want to do? I think I'll just grill. I'm grilling you right now. All 8.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, and we're going 3, 2, 1. My first one's 1983's War Games.
I thought it was technologically advanced for its time, but totally dated.
Yeah, if you do watch it now, the beep boop bop of the computers,
It takes you out of it. It really does.
All right, I'm going with an early 80 on the dot, Superman 2 with the boy Christopher Reeves, which I think is the best Superman.
That's going to be my review. Is the Superman that I find the most entertaining of the old Superman.
Well done. I'm going to go number 3. We're going to go with something fun, a John Carpenter film that I adore. They Live. Rowdy Piper, baby.
The message is louder than the quality of entertainment, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. There you go, man. Well said. Okay, so now I'm going to go with we talked about this earlier, an Oscar winner of the 80s.
Yeah.
I'm going with 88. I'm going with my boy Tom Cruise, Rain Man, Dustin Hoffman.
A performance-driven drama that showed that Tom Cruise can hang.
Yeah. Well said.
Yeah.
Man, Charlie's killing it, guys.
One
God,
sentence
you're gonna make
review.
me look awful here in a minute. I'm gonna go with. I know you mentioned that. I feel like, and you're right, that kind of the gangster films kind of took a break in the 80s. You know, early 80s to where you saw, you know, Goodfellas in the 90s, Casino. Of course, a lot of TV shows really hit off. But The Untouchables, 1987. I mean, man, Costner. I mean, how many actors are in that are worth it? Duvall. I mean, so many good actors in that film. Is Duvall in that? Yeah, he is. Is he? No, I'm thinking of
Godfather.
No, Duvall's not in that. But no,
Sean Connery, Kevin Costner, De Niro. Okay. The Untouchables. One of the most stylized true stories I saw when I was younger.
Nice. Very stylized. I love that. Is it 20s, 30s, 40s? That area with the top hat, the hats.
Yeah, the Al Capone era. Yeah.
Great film. Yeah. The Tommy gun. Now we're just going to have fun with it. I'm going to go with one of my favorite 80s kind of dark action films starring my boy Sly Stallone, 1986 Cobra.
I never saw Cobra.
His car's so cool.
I was aware of it, but it just seemed like just more of the same.
I got it back.
Okay.
You ready? I'm gonna, and I'm sure you. I mean, I know you've seen this, but I'm gonna go with the big dog, 87 Full Metal Jacket.
Oh man, one sentence. Man, this is tough.
Got him, guys. I stumped him. Charlie Thompson speechless. What? Is that going to be your one sentence review of Full Metal Jacket?
I'm just speechless. Hold on. God, how do you describe this fucking film? A brutally lovely look at the Vietnam War. That's all I got.
Oh, nice. All right, I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna keep it with another heavy hitter director here. I'm gonna go with The Outsiders, another Tom Cruise film.
Not one of Coppola's best, but a great experiment in superstar collaboration. Yeah.
Did he know it was? I mean, this is pre-superstardom, kind of, was it? Or they were just all no? They were all kind of the.
I mean,
cool
everybody had
kids,
an opportunity to make it, just being cast in that film.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah.
I mean, we want to talk about the ego in that film, like just getting it done. I mean, hats off to Francis Ford Coppola. To all of them, man. Like they were C. Thomas Howell, Tom Cruise, Ralph Macchio. Come on, Emilio Estevez. I mean, they were all in there, man.
Matt Dillon, stay golden, pony boy.
All right, Was that the last one? All right.
Yep.
All right. I thought I did pretty good. There's no real point system. It's just kind of like a movie nerd flex almost. You know, just a fun little game, fun little time passing game. But yes, I have 8 movies. Are you ready, sir?
I'll do my best.
We're gonna start off with a Michael J. Fox classic, Teen Wolf.
Oh, an amazing mix of fantasy, teen angst, and one of the funniest scenes when his dad turns into a werewolf, and he right when he opens his door, his dad's in the werewolf makeup. I cannot not laugh at that scene. There's one of the scenes in cinematic history where I die laughing. I don't know what it is about that dad in the makeup, but
I wish we had the technology to like write out the sentence like as we say it, like on the screen.
Oh God, that was a paragraph.
All right, no, that's good, and that's one of the things I remember too, is the dad.
Just dad when he opens the door. It's
did I ever tell you my story of meeting that guy? Okay, so back in 2007, we went to Texas Frightmare, and he was booked, and but it was like a brand new building, brand new conference room area, all that kind of stuff. And I don't know what it was, but I guess they just didn't have the space for him. And so they put him like in like the worst spot, like around the corner where the line was just kind of forming.
Teen Wolf Dad, I'd have been there.
And the line was kind of slow moving, and so all the ones that didn't want to like get his autograph, like just had to like look the other way, like just like keep looking forward. Don't look at Teen Wolf Dad. He's gonna ask you for $20.
I'd be like, "It's Teen Wolf Dad. Take my money."
Yeah, but like as soon as you do it, like you got to get right back in line, and then like stay in his space for like another 5 minutes. So every time you see him, you got to like look at him and be like, "He's the best. He's just the best."
Scene, dude, with you, first time I see you in makeup, man, I just lost it. I just can't handle
We
it.
just keep repeating that over and over again.
You're great.
Just
you're
the best.
Great, man.
Just
you know
the best.
You're the best. Just every time.
Yeah.
Every
and you're
time.
like, what's the deal with this line? Why isn't it moving? Yeah, just the best. Teen Wolf.
All right, that was number 1, folks. Just so you know.
All right, here we go.
I want to give you a 1-word review next time, just to make
all
up
right.
for it.
One of your favorite icons, A Nightmare on Elm Street.
The best slasher, in my opinion. The original is to me a slasher classic. Must see.
Very nice, very restrained. I like it.
I try to keep it short.
The big budget action, Rambo: First Blood, Part 2.
This is the one that tickled my action. Rambo 1 was a personal story. This one was the action packed gun fucking the big knife, big gun having Rambo that I wanted. So I was very happy.
Let's see. All right. Now let's see how your restraint can be when we do the next one.
Oh,
which was,
no.
Arnold Schwarzenegger's Commando.
Almost a perfect single man army action flick. Arnold is in supreme shape. There's not going to be a better action star than Arnold Schwarzenegger in 1985's Commando.
Very nice. Very nice. Cut it off. I like it.
To me, that's the epitome of an action movie, and the epitome of an action movie star. I mean, Bennett, the villain. Come on.
And I mean, the guy's last name is Matrix, for God's sakes.
John Matrix. John Spartan, John Matrix, some of the greatest, most generic, badass, I'm a big corn-fed motherfucking American who has big guns and big arms and a six-pack, and I'm going to whoop your ass kind of names.
All right, here we go. The Emilio Estevez, Lou Diamond Phillips classic, Young Guns.
It's really more of just a teen or like a teeny bopper action movie, bunch of hot guys in it. It's not even a Western. It's just Die Hard with cowboy
Like an
hats.
adventure film, yeah.
Yeah, it's just it was. I loved it because it was set in a Western setting, but it's really an 80s action film at all the way through.
Die Hard with cowboy hats. I'll take it. All righty.
Yeah, there you go.
The Robin Williams classic, Good Morning Vietnam.
Now, this one I've seen only once. Being a huge Robin Williams fan, I saw it at too young of an age and didn't appreciate it. But I think it sent a pretty good message about stuff in Vietnam that wasn't a true war movie. You know, it was about other aspects of the war that you weren't used to. You were seeing, and you know, the rawness of Full Metal Jacket and even earlier with Apocalypse Now and other Vietnam or war movies out of the 80s. I think this was something that was a little bit more human and Robin Williams just showing his chops.
Man, look at that sentence right there, baby. All right. Michael Douglas, Glenn Close, Fatal Attraction.
Man, just one of the best sexy suspense thrillers you could ever watch. And Glenn Close, man, she's terrifying in that film.
She is pretty terrifying, I gotta say.
I mean, I'm more scared of her than Jason Voorhees. So, in that movie, because it's real, like that can happen.
I've seen it like 3 times now, and she never ceases to impress me every time I watch it.
Terrifying.
All right, last one on the list. Clint Eastwood, military movie, Heartbreak Ridge.
Heartbreak Ridge. Oh man, I've seen that one a few times. My grandpa loves that movie. That was, I think, the first time I saw a Clint Eastwood in a military film, and man, it's just so well rounded and so well acted, and it just seemed like a really, really good story that was really, really just perfectly acted by Clint Eastwood. I mean, I think that's one of his best that a lot of people don't know.
I would wager to say it has the same energy as Commando, like just ultimate badass, like just
yeah. Plays. Who's a better actor to play a badass than
exactly?
Eastwood, so.
And he showed those young kids, those little whippersnappers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that's why all granddads like that movie, is because it's Clint Eastwood putting those young kids in their place, and prevailing.
Yes, not only prevailing, but yeah, showing them a thing or two, and it's I think my grandpa and Clint Eastwood are almost the exact same
Interesting.
age. So
yeah. Okay. But yeah, that's my 8. That's the 1-sentence review.
Whoa.
We got through it, Ryland.
You were so much smoother than I, but you know me, I ramble.
It's all good. You just want to say so much, you know. You have so much to say.
I have a hard time to boil it down.
Okay, so after the games, after the group news, after all the 80s stuff, we got 2 more things we got to do. We got to talk about these 2 movies. The first one on the docket is the 1985 John Hughes classic, Weird Science, and here is the trailer, guys.
It's not a bad idea.
What?
Making a girl. Actually making a girl.
This is Wyatt and Gary.
I'd give her Wamdigus mammary glands.
Something's about to change their world. Something out of this world.
She's alive! Alive!
What would you little maniacs like to do first?
It's all in the name of science. Weird science.
If you want to be a party animal, you have to learn to live in the jungle.
Not us.
Not here.
No way.
She is turning their lives.
Trust me for once, will you?
What is going on?
Gary, I don't know. I don't know.
Their minds. And their house. Upside down.
It's seriously affecting your sex life.
It's completely unnatural.
Do you realize it's snowing in my room?
Totally unbelievable.
No! What's going on?
And definitely weird.
Hi, dudes.
They went from zeros to heroes in one fantastic weekend.
That's so good.
Universal Pictures presents a John Hughes film, Weird Science.
It's purely sexual.
Okay, yeah, that was the trailer for Weird Science, guys. Confession time, man. I gotta say that this was a movie that I always requested to watch. You know, like I'm not sure if you ever had like the summertime, you know, just the lazy summertime movies. You know, just to pass the time, just to, you know, to get through the day until, you know, whatever. You know, like your friends were, you know, had to go do something, so you had to kill a couple hours. You know, those were I always think of those as like my summertime movies, like the time that mom and dad were at work, but they would let me stay at the house. You know,
yeah.
And Weird Science was one that I always gravitated towards. It was just, it was kind of like on the same level as Pee-wee's Big Adventure. It was just wacky, man. It just had so much, just imagery just coming at you, especially in those in the girl creation parts and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it was definitely one of those ones that my parents taped, and I just wore that fucking tape out. It was my introduction to John Hughes before knowing who John Hughes was. And it was just a fun little movie that I thought was just so well told, you know, and all the actions seemed pretty badass, like all the justifications, you know, to I guess woo these women. They were really well written, you know, like with the cars and the driving fast and the bikers and all that kind of stuff. Like especially coming up as a kid, like how do I woo women? Like I know I'll just have a house party where some biker gang comes in. And I deflect them with my own badassery, you know. It's the magic of John Hughes. We have to talk about that. I mean, we've done some Hughes on the podcast, but he's just got a crazy run. I mean, I just wish he didn't go as early as he did. I mean, he wrote a shit ton that eventually got made after he was gone. But man, he's just got this. He's got it. He's got the magic. It's just there's this Hughesism put into everything. Everything. I mean, the music, like you said, he just knew cool shit. Like the cars they were driving, the suits that they transformed into. He just hit a nerve as like almost just it's like an American what's the American artist that does all the just American pop, you know, like pictures with the kids. Norman Rockwell. You know, if Norman Rockwell was a director, he'd be John Hughes. Well, I mean, it's kind of hard to argue with this film, but he just nails that just kind of that teenage angst and teenage kids and what they're going through. And he's just such a great writer. His character development's there. His humor's there. His cool factor's there. They're so well-rounded. There's no fat on his films at all. I mean, it's John Hughes gives it to you. And it's so well done. It's so entertaining. It's so rewatchable. I mean, I think some of his films, or all of his films, really, to be honest, every film on his directorial list, which isn't long. It's only 8 or 9, I believe. They're all ones that people, I watch 16 Candles. I watch Planes and Trains. You know, I watch, you know, all this shit every year. You know, when I want to go back to my childhood, you know, you want to watch Weird Science. Same with me. It's just, he just has that. He has that weird, or not weird, just that talent, that gift to me from his writing ability and what you see on screen. I don't know what it is, but they're just iconic films. Well, I mean, I was gonna try and suck his dick, but I think you already took the whole thing, man.
I mean, but I'm even a fan of Curly Sue. I remember you mentioned that, and I was like, man, I love Curly Sue. That's his last directing credit in '91, but it's so endearing and fun, and the character of Curly Sue, the actress that plays that role, and the just the whole premise of that movie, I thought was great, and a lot of people know that that's a Hughes film because it wasn't as big as a hit, of course, as Uncle Buck and Ferris Bueller and all these, but yeah, man, he's just amazing, and his writing abilities, you know, top notch. So
can't say much. Well, I mean, everything you're saying, it kind of negates itself with this film. You know, like this is kind of an oddball in the Hughes canon. Like it almost seems like it maybe was a challenge for John Hughes, or it was just he was just an up and coming filmmaker. He'd had a few successes, and then Joel Silver, who produced the film, big time movie producer. I mean, he knocks on Hughes's doors and says, "Hey, let's make a movie," you know, and maybe that was just what he thought a big budget type of story should be, you know, like from the mind of John Hughes, you know, because that's what it seems like. It seems like he's playing with
this.
He's like playing with a lot more toys, you know, and so he had a little bit more, you know, just wackiness in there, a lot more wackiness.
Oh, totally. It's practically a fantasy the whole time. With the things that we'll get into, later, the things this computer generated woman can do. It's just complete all wackiness and craziness and non-realistic stuff. The story behind it is, which I'm sure you know, he wrote this movie in like 2 days.
I did not know that.
Like, I mean, he wrote Weird Science. I swear, like you said, he took a trip or something and wrote, pretty small budget, I believe, of not small, but I mean, $7.5 million budget and grossed $25 million. So, I bet he was just having fun. I think he had made a few successes and was like, let's make something a little bit more fantastical, or I want some practical effects done. I want some other shit thrown in there, but also have pretty much a primary base of some teenage kids going through some shit.
Well, we talked about teen comedies with the teen comedy bracket coming up. Does this qualify as a teen? There's not a single scene inside of a school. Well, I mean, there is. I guess there is in the gym, the very beginning, the very end.
You're right. Yeah, the opening.
But everything else is at the house, at the mall.
Teen comedy, to me, it's a teen. It's based about teenagers going through teenage things, and it's a comedy for sure. So, absolutely, I think it's one of the best teen comedies. There's some other ones in the 80s maybe that you think more of, like maybe Revenge of the Nerds or something else that's more, you would think comedy based, versus this is really sci-fi. This is like a Frankenstein almost story, pretty much. I mean, it's a take on it, and but it's just got so many. It goes in all these little weird little mini stories, these little directions, but it comes back, and it does have a little bit of that John Hughes heart at the end that you always get, no matter what. Even in Weird Science, I went, oh, there's a little message at the end,
Of course, yeah.
Because I wanted to, we'll talk about it, but it's like, is this a little dated with, they keep mentioning how young these guys are. 15-year-old, I'm about to be 16, and they created this 22-year-old woman, 23-year-old woman. That's kind of running their lives here in this story. So I don't know if that kind of thing will fly in today's world with that kind of thing.
Well, I mean, obviously not.
The age difference. I mean, it's in a John Hughes. It's through the scope of a John Hughes, so it's very toned down in that aspect. There's not a lot of talk about the sex, stuff. It's implied, and it pretty much, I think, pretty toned down compared to some of the other teen comedies of the past with Porky's and very raunchy comedies. This isn't raunchy. It's a John Hughes film, so it's funny, and it's about a topic of two teenage boys that create pretty much a computer woman, to have fun with. So yeah, I think it's great. I think it's well done, but it's still a little dated in that aspect.
In the aspect of like an older.
Oh yeah,
person,
yeah. Like a person 23, talking to teenage boys about.
Well, I mean, we were very much living.
Even though she's created, she's a created being that, and they're they're the ones that did it. But it's just one of those things where I don't know.
Well, I mean, we're very much living in the patriarchy when this movie came out. So I mean, it's all about what serves the man. Like what would a man enjoy? Oh, just a woman that they can just create. They don't have to, date or woo or anything like that. They can just have, and and I the implications of this woman are, it's ungodly what you can think of, but yes, you're right. Like, but I think that Lisa, the girl they create, played by Kelly LeBrock, who is smoking hot, like so incredibly exotic.
But take a looks aside, I think her acting in this movie is really good. I mean, I hadn't seen this, I hadn't retouched on it in a while, and I think she really does hit that role well. She plays a lot of different parts. She plays the sexy girl, then she plays the hard nose to the parents or to Chet. Then she's soft in some scenes, or she changes up to, changes gears, and yeah, she's gorgeous, and I think she's a great casting for this.
There was a long time where I thought that that they missed the mark on the casting, but I thought,
Really?
years later, I'm like, yeah, she was the one. She was.
Oh yeah, she's just because I don't want to say that, but I think in the 80s there wasn't a lot of those mannequin, what's the actress in Mannequin?
Kim Cattrall.
Kim Cattrall, she's a great actress, but I don't think they had the looks and the acting ability in the 80s. There wasn't as many of them, in the 80s. I don't think that had at all. But I think she nailed the role. She was great.
But for the other characters, the main characters of the film, a pair of buddies named Gary and Wyatt. They have a weekend at Wyatt's parents' house, who's also being watched by their older brother Chet, who's played by the late great Bill Paxton in the role of Chet. If you've ever seen the film, he really steals the show anytime he's on the screen. He's just electric. He just plays that bully ass older brother.
Yeah, classic.
Yeah.
I mean, yep, he steals every scene. He's hilarious. He's quotable. Yeah, that's half the reason this film is as good as it is Paxton just slays.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's I mean, the performances are what they are. The thing I really always took away from the film, whenever I was watching it, was a lot of the cinematic choices visually that Hughes made. Like a lot of my early memories of watching the film was like I wanted to rewatch certain parts, and it was just because it just kind of like looked cool to me. Like I love the part where he brings up the idea of the girl. He's like, "You're not serious. Like, look into my eyes," and then it cuts to this very strange viewpoint where the top and the bottom are blacked out. You just see his eyes, and then it cuts to the TV of Dr. Frankenstein, and then back to Wyatt doing this thing, and it was just a weird cut, that I always really enjoyed.
Yeah.
And then.
I mean, they do it later on in the shower where they're just in the on the mouths only when they're doing the is that what old detective show is that they're mimicking? I can't even remember. But yeah, John Hughes directed this, and he always has these cool little touches to his films.
And I loved Gary's performance, played by Anthony Michael Hall. One of the greatest scenes I ever loved watching was when they went to the candy bar. To get loaded and have a party, and just the way Gary's voice changed after he got drunk, and just the way he talked, and he was just so like super loosey goosey, and it's I mean I want to talk more analytically about it, but like every time I try to talk about it, like I just want to quote it. I just want to quote the fucking film.
Yeah. I think Anthony Michael Hall was by far the better actor out of the two. I love Wyatt's character is great. He has a lot of things in the movie that I like that he does, and the way he acts, or the way he responds to things. He's a little more even keel of the two guys. I think he's the easy, he's the soft spoken one, the nicer one. But Ian Michael Smith, I don't know. I've always thought, for some reason in that movie, I'm like, he's just not a good actor. Like. He's a decent looking guy. He's a young guy, but I'm like, because he didn't do much after this, and I'm like, it's the only thing in this film where I'm like, because Anthony Michael Hall is great. I mean, I thought he nails it. You see him later in stuff like Johnny Be Good, and then he blows up. And yeah, I mean, but that's it. Other than a very young Robert Downey, Robert Downey Jr. That's his lines are he's the stereotypical bully / villain. He's got great hair though, but it's very young RDJ. Other than that though, that's kind of it. That's really the only actors that bounce off each other.
Well, I mean, I thought everybody did a great job. I mean, who would kill it would be Mark Wahlberg as Wyatt. I mean, Mark Wahlberg, Anthony Michael Hall, Robert Downey Jr. Maybe.
Let's see. This was 87. He was too young.
How old was he? Like what? 15?
No, he was probably actually 15.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they both look like little boys in this film.
Yeah, that's the thing is everyone is so young. Oh God. But yeah, I mean, I was gonna say you really can't get analytical about this. I mean, everybody's seen it. If you haven't, like we said, it starts out. I mean, it's a stereotypical high school film. Two buddies are in gym class. They want the girls. They figure out a way. I mean, this is the birth of computer era. This. I'm sure Hughes was like, I got to make something that has involved computers, and let's throw a little sci-fi in there to make it fun. Let's make some fun scenes, and this is what he came up with. He's like, I'm just gonna make, pretty much teenage boys that make a female Frankenstein.
It's
not that hard. I mean, that's why he did it in 2 days. He did some dialogue, which he's amazing at. You can't take that away from him. But yeah, there's not much to the premise, but it's just gold.
Well, I think there's a little bit more there. I mean, it's a Hughes film. I mean, you can't just. I mean, yes, they're all walkaways. They're all great. The great characters, whatever. I mean, but there's always a message, there, and I'd say, like, I guess the question I would ask would be like, what do you think Lisa represents to these kids?
I think, to me, because their main goal is to get the girls they actually are in love with in school, the ones that they've that they've been around, the ones that the two jerk offs are with. They're the better guys. They're the sweeter guys. They're the ones that do the right things.
Right.
And I think Lisa, represented all their, lust and angst and what they thought they would want in something in a relationship, or what they're, as a young boy, you don't have any idea.
Right.
What a woman really is about and what a relationship's about. You just think, oh
just
man,
pounce.
Their treasure trove of Playboys. I'm still impressed. at 40 years old, because remember that's like they get a lot of this information from their nudie mags, and they had just this trunk full of them.
Right.
I'm like, nobody had that. Especially teenage boys. I don't care who lived in the house. I don't care if they were Jets or theirs. You don't have a fucking gold mine of Playboys in a trunk like that.
Anyways, on top of that, what the hell are y'all doing hanging out? Like y'all just be just looking at porn. Like you have a whole thing of porn and nobody's watching it right now.
They would have opened it up and you would have saw me in it like naked. I'd have been in there for 3 days. Damn, Riley, get the hell out of here.
And in the last few months, I've really understood your love of pornography, and how much it means to you.
Hey, you know what? We were, like I said, we were pre-internet kids. That trunk of Playboys would have been. I mean, it would have been like Indiana Jones finding the.
I think Lisa represents like losing your virginity, all of that frustration, all of the, like, you don't know what it is. You don't know what it is you want. Like you're told that this is awesome or whatever. And at the very beginning, like, all they wanted to do was take a shower with these chicks. and they were talking about Deb and Hilly. That's the one goal. That's the unachievable. That would be so great if they did it. They created the chick. They got to shower with a chick, and it wasn't all it was cracked up to be.
Now they're in the bathing suits.
It's like the myth. Once you break through that myth, it becomes much easier to operate. But scared money don't make money. So. It's just kind of hard to, it's just, I think she represents that barrier, of knowledge, that rite of passage, call it what you want, like an Oedipus complex, if you want, or like an older lady mentor or whatever, But I think.
But also that women aren't objects kind of thing
right.
too. It's kind of where they're going with it. Is these are young kids? That's all they think of.
Yeah.
Is what they see. But yeah, I think that's the message. Is keep going. You're talking.
Yeah, and
about,
just having somebody like there was never really any mention of intercourse or even real exotic stuff happening between Deb and Illy. That night going into the morning, it was just them being together, just sharing that space, holding each other, all that kind of lovey-dovey shit, Yep. And then reality, of course, hits whenever Chet shows up. But I think that's the stuff that they never would have done without Lisa just being around and having that patience, and I think the implication that maybe they did bang her, Like maybe they did, but they just can't show that in the movie,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's not the message that the movie was going for. I mean, it's a mystery,
because it's not a story about puberty. I mean, because puberty has already hit. They already know that they like women, and that they want to take a shower with them. I think it's just that realization that sex is not the ultimate goal. That relationships, connection, all of that is the ultimate goal, and but I mean, because on top of that, the sci-fi is very flimsy in this film. It's not hard sci-fi at all. I'm not sure if it's aliens. I'm not sure if it's like a Earth's rotation type of situation mixed with technology. I have no clue.
She's like the genie from she can just kind of make people forget or freeze the grandparents or turn Chet into a toad troll fucking thing, make people forget shit. But yeah, it's just this fantasy kind of story that has that John Hughesism in it, and I think it's just fun. The soundtrack's amazing. I mean, one of the best 80s party scenes of all time. I love 80s parties. Teen Wolf, you were talking earlier, has a great party scene where they play
7 Minutes in Heaven,
or seven in Heaven, and this reminded me of that just massive
house party
with people in just 80s garb, because they're always in 80s movies like
big hair,
like they're going to studio 80 54 whatever the hell it is.
It was a big deal.
It's epic.
Like I remember going to like a house party. I remember I knew exactly how I looked. Before I stepped up in that motherfucker. Yeah. It's a big deal. But I guess we got to rate this thing before we move on to the next feature. So I'll start with you, Ryland. You were the one that picked this one. Out of 10 stars, what do you give Weird Science overall?
Yeah, when we were talking, we were spitballing with each other. I said, when I think 80s, I think John Hughes. Ferris Bueller was probably up there. I think Weird Science is. I'm gonna keep it 80s. It's not quite a 9 to me, so I'm gonna say Weird Science is an 8.8. I really wish I could give it that 9 up. I think there are better John Hughes films. I just wanted to do this one because it's fun. It's quite a bit different than what we're about to talk about, so I kind of wanted to go that route. It's got everything I wanted. Great soundtrack, sci-fi, coming of age. It's rewatchability's there, so yeah, man, it's almost a 9.
And that's a much higher. You must hold John Hughes in very high regard.
I love him.
Because I mean, as much as I love this film, I know it's not the most well-made film. It seems rather low budget. I mean, the sound mixing in the movie is just all over the place. I'm not sure if that's just a sign of the times. That they haven't really gotten that sound design up, but I've heard much better sounding films that came out before this. But yeah, it was the movie didn't age well, especially in the whole misogyny department. It's still very much, in service of the dude, like the dude prevails, the dude, or the dudes rather. They get the girl. They're able to reconcile with Lisa and send her off properly. Him and Chet have a better relationship. You know, all the things worked out. You know, and you know, it's just it's that the message is there, but just the representation is not there. But that's just you know, that's just the 80s. You know, me and my wife make a joke about when people talk about, you know, it was back in the day or whatever. We always tell the line of, well, you got to understand. I mean, this was back whenever cocaine was still legal, and that's what we always say whenever we talk about the old days or whatever. But again, great cinematic choices. I thought the music was great. I thought the cast really worked well together. And so all the pieces together really make for a great film. And I got to say, I got to give this a 9.3. So rewatchable. I even watched it again with all the, you know, all the standards in place for you know, the gender equality and all that kind of stuff. And I was still just like, he's doing a good job. You know, treating it well. You know, like, yes, they are, but there wasn't a whole lot of, you know, gay representation or anything like that. But it was just a story about people who thought they knew what they wanted, and then once they acquired it, they knew that they wanted something else. You know, and that's the main takeaway from this film. You know, is it, you know, what you know, it's like science. Like, what have you created? You know, does it really help the world, or was it being made in the service of what you wanted it to be made for? Or maybe it repurposed itself just because it's just the way of the world. You know, man.
Or trying to create perfection. It's just, I don't think that's the thing that's scary. You don't want, you know, that's, our imperfections are what make us, you know, who we are. So
exactly.
Trying to create something. You're perfect, you know. Every guy's always, what's your ideal woman? What's your perfect woman? And this is what they do. They put the little pieces of paper in the printer to make it, and it's just not it's not always what it cracks up to be.
You know, but I'm just so glad it ended the way it did, and it didn't end like Ex Machina. You know, and so because that's the reality of the situation. Is this chick is all
Gary
powerful?
Wyatt wouldn't have liked that.
They're all powerful.
Yeah.
But luckily all she wants to do is just hit on dudes, you know. So she's in great company in Shermer, Illinois. But yeah, 9.3, I'd give that a. But yeah, so that's Weird Science, guys. If you haven't seen it, and you're in our age demographic, please, what are you doing? Go watch the film. It's really good. It's a great little 90 minutes. But we have one more movie, a movie that neither one of us have actually seen before this show, and that is 1989's Sex, Lies, and Videotape, and here is the trailer, guys.
Tonight's feature presentation is so fucking scary, it'll take the wrinkles out of your nutsack and fade your butt hairs. So get ready, motherfuckers! Alright, shut the fuck up! Start the movie!
It's the most provocative film of the year. Vincent Canby in the New York Times calls it one of the best of '89. Exceptionally accomplished and witty.
Being happy isn't all that great. I mean, the last time I was really happy, I got so fat.
The Los Angeles Times calls it brilliant. A delicate and sexually charged film.
Look, we're gonna do it or not.
Rolling Stone says it's dazzling, fun, and scorchingly erotic.
Why don't you let me tape you?
Doing what? John and Ann don't have sex anymore.
And Time Magazine calls it terrific. The season's smartest and funniest film.
It's for me.
Yeah, it's for you.
Sex, Lies, and Videotape.
Is that for me?
Yeah, it's for you.
A Miramax Films release.
It's not uncommon for me not to know a film, but you've known of it, you just haven't seen it, huh?
Correct. Yes, I know a lot about the film. Actually, it's
yeah.
You know, it was one of those films that, you know, it was in '89. It was, you know, it was during that huge feed of, I didn't know if it came out in the '80s or '90s. You know, Bill and Ted, all that kind of stuff. I was kind of getting more in tune of, like, new releases, what was in the video store, what was in the theaters. I was kind of getting more of an idea how that thing worked. The theater dropped into the VHS market, and then so on, and then it dropped into the cable market, and so on and so forth. I was kind of getting a grasp of all that. So I mean, the Sex, Lies, and Videotape was definitely one of those that I heard about. Of course, it has the word sex in it. And so in the late 80s, early 90s, I mean, that was very taboo. It was very adult. Like, it immediately told you that this was not for kids. And so it just never hit my radar whenever I was growing up. And by that time, the adult sexy thriller stopped being in chic by the time, I guess, my mid 20s, early 30s started popping off. So, like, all that kind of went to, like, television. And so like these types of stories just kind of got relegated to, like, just little, tawdry little stories like Red Shoe Diaries and stuff like that, But yeah, I mean, this was definitely a game changer in the form of, like, the modern day thriller. Like, instead of, like, somebody coming after you with a gun or something like that, maybe it's just the story of just an affair. Of just the lies and deceit that come in with that, and just meeting new people, getting smitten by them, your own personal, situation at the time, how that affects everything, like, these are all things that are getting hit on in this movie. But for those who haven't seen it, I'd love to give a rundown of the plot. It centers around this married couple, Anne and what's his name?
John.
Anne and John, just fucking vanilla ass names. But they're a married couple, and Anne has problems with intimacy. But John obviously does not, because he's banging Anne's sister on the side. Her name is Cynthia, and she's played by Laura San Giacomo. Oh my goodness, from old Just Shoot Me, remember her? Man, I thought back in the day, she was like the B movie, like soft-core, sexy, movies back in the day. That's Laura San Giacomo, baby.
Just a strong woman, man. She played, she's amazing in this role. Because it's so real. It's you got to get into it, because it's Soderbergh's,
right. So let me finish up the plot here. And so yes, so John is having an affair with Anne's sister, Cynthia. All the while, one of John's old college buddies, he hasn't known in years, his name is Graham. He needs a place to stay for a night while he gets everything situated in the same town. And so he spends the night. John's, like I said, the marriage is on the rocks. So John's off doing whatever he's doing. It leaves Anne to her own devices, which is to hang out with this guy Graham. And she's just stricken by him. She just finds him very interesting, much more interesting than John, anyway. And so and so the story proceeds, just affairs being had. Annie McDowell was just kind of longing for this guy, and then after a while, after Graham gets set up in his own apartment, he gets a visit from Anne. Anne finds out that that Graham has a very specific kink. and that kink is that he videotapes women and just asks them questions about sex, their own personal experiences, what their thoughts are, all these kinds of things, because it's revealed in the movie that Graham is impotent, is that he cannot get an erection with a woman or anybody else in the room. Which, I'm saying all this stuff, but back in the day, like, you wouldn't be caught dead saying any of this stuff in a movie.
Yeah, no, this is very deep. 1989, right?
Mm-hmm.
This gets into it really quick too. I mean, it's
right off the bat.
It's all dialogue. She's at the therapist. It is talking about real life situations in a real life way. And Soderbergh is just an amazing writer. He's very young when he wrote this, but man, I'm not surprised it won the awards. It won watching this for the first time.
I was very impressed with the writing, just the realism of the writing in this film.
Yeah.
You know, just the way it deviates. One of my favorite scenes in the movie is whenever Anne takes that bold move in the middle of the night to question John about his infidelity. And the way, I mean, because we as the audience know that he's a piece of shit, you know, but just the way he navigates it. And it's so much to the point to where at the end of the scene, they're hugging and Anne is just loving this dude again. You know, where 5 minutes before she could not stand him and she was so incredibly sure that he was cheating on her.
I thought the conversations between John, the cheating husband, and of all people, her sister, you know, Cynthia, their interactions, because she's saying, you know, she's calling him out, like they're talking to each other, like,
oh yeah,
you know, just completely open. Like, if your sister finds out I'm fucking you, and she's calling him, well, you know, you're not the husband of the year over here.
Yeah, there was no alliteration.
How many, you know, there's no filter. It's just, it seems so realistic, and people are calling each other out for being just shitty people, because they are in this, and people are very raw with their sexual preferences, but the situations still seem realistic. It's not. But acting as well really has to make this film work, because how real it's this almost Tarantino-esque dialogue. It's not as fast paced. It's just a lot of it. It's
just life.
And you have to be a pretty damn good actor to hold these scenes together, and you get that with this. So Spader's amazing. We haven't even said
James Spader plays Graham, the out of town sex fiend, if you want to call him that.
He's lights out in this. He plays such a weird role.
I mean,
and he does.
And
it
if you've
so
ever
well.
seen him in like The Blacklist or The Office, you know, he just plays that. He's cool as a fucking cucumber, man, and he just has the best voice. Like that's one of the things I've always been impressed with was James Spader's voice, and he just plays it like he's this guy that fucked a lot of people over in his past, and so he's not very well trusted, you know. But you find that out later on. But whenever you're getting to know him the same time that Anne is getting to know him. And so the things he says, he's being very trusting and all these kinds of things. And, you know, and just Anne is just smitten by this guy. She just wants to know more. And then at the same time with John just being so blatant with his infidelity and like missing work because of it.
I mean, you got to build his character up too. I mean, he's this hotshot, big money guy. I mean, this is kind of Anne and John are wealthy, very wealthy. They seem that way in this film, and he's just this. It just seems like he's the hotshot kind of lawyer, big wig guy that tells his secretary to cover for him on this, and just he has all these infidelity and hidden shit, but it's with their sister, so it makes it a fun triangle, or whatever you want to call it, and I just love the dialogue and the writing. It's amazing. I've loved Soderbergh's, his stuff. I mean, Ocean's 11, some of my favorite stuff out there. He's done what's another one of his good ones?
He did Traffic.
I've got it written down. Traffic. Out of Sight. Out of Sight's fun, but a lot of people though kind of shit on Soderbergh sometimes. He's not. I don't know. Like this won him the Palme d'Or in '89. He's a young hotshot guy, and I don't think some people just don't like his stuff.
No, I'm in that boat. I'm not the biggest fan of Steven Soderbergh. He just his way of doing it. Like I'm not sure if you know this either, but I'm not the biggest fan of like Wes Anderson. Just a guy who kind of like has a style of a movie that just is so steadfast. And in the way he does it, like Soderbergh's one of those, just like Wes Anderson is. Like you can tell a Soderbergh film just by looking at it.
Yeah, they are kind of similar. Now that I'm thinking about it,
it's very that type of movie. Like you can watch it for 15 minutes and be like, did Steven Soderbergh direct this movie? And then you look and you're like, oh yeah, he did.
But try to explain that, because I'm thinking about it and I'm like, how can I explain what you're talking about? And it's like, is it like just like music video pace? Is that what it is?
No, it's a lot of like ambient noise. It's a lot of like, just holding on long shots, not really moving the camera a whole lot, but just panning in and out. You know, it's very Soderbergh. You know, and like it's always static. It's always moving this way or that way, but it's never like coming at you like NYPD Blue.
Yeah.
You know, like it's what an old ass reference. And this is no different, you know, and I was impressed with the cinematic choices visually of this film as well. You know, I mean, considering the budget, I mean, they were able to just find this great architecture just to show the yuppie, you know, portion of this film with these rich people. They were just young, you know, and they were just building this life that they thought they wanted, you know, but then it turns out that both of them just want something different, but neither one of them has the balls to just cut it off, you know. And I mean, I guess Anne is, but just John's just this coward.
Andie MacDowell, I've always been a fan of hers, and she's always been like PG.
Oh yeah, Multiplicity and Groundhog Day.
Yeah. Groundhog Day, Multiplicity. Yeah. She's always been kind of PG to me. So seeing her in this film about sex and some of the things she does, I was like, okay.
Oh, right. I've never found Andie MacDowell not to be sexy, but to be blatantly sexy.
She is a hidden, like, if you ain't on the Andie MacDowell train, you can get the hell out. Like, like she is a babe, and she is a goddess, an 80s, 90s goddess. We grew up with her. God bless her. I hope she has a wonderful life. I love you, Andie MacDowell.
My one big criticism about Andie MacDowell is that anytime she takes a role, there always has to be some kind of explanation for her accent. It's like she never wants to learn how to do a different accent.
Yeah.
You just have to, you know, I just grew up on a farm and then my family moved to New York City. And but I still have this accent. You know, and that's a very small thing. Very small Andie MacDowell bitch is that she just refuses to learn a new accent.
But are we missing out on when she buddied up with Bruce Willis? I mean, don't we have to give a shout out for that too?
Hudson Hawk.
Hudson Hawk. I mean, is that Ice Cold? Did Ice Cold do? Hudson
He did.
Hawk
He did
with
back
us?
in episode 11.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Shout out, Ice. I still got you, man. Hudson Hawk's fucking slaps.
No. And so that's my one big Andie MacDowell criticism is that there's always got to be some kind of like couple of lines in the movie about how she grew up on a farm or grew out in the country or grew up in the South or whatever.
I think she's wonderful. And I mean, but to be honest, when you think of her, does great acting come up? I mean, no. But in this, she is amazing. Her acting is
raw,
phenomenal.
very raw.
It's raw. It's like I said, the writing is so realistic, and these actors really pull it off. And I was really impressed by her. I know Spader's a great actor. You know, Gallagher, I mean, he's not really the dynamic to me. He's more of just like that. He's, to me, out of the three, the most worst written, I guess. Like, he's just kind of very generic. He's the stereotypical shitty husband, playboy, money-making guy. But like, there's not a lot of depth to him. But I mean, good Lord. I mean, Graham and Anne have so much more going on.
Well, I mean,
I was okay with that. I mean, they're the ones that really held the film.
Well,
together.
I mean, I don't think it's much of a competition, really. I mean, but I think all four of them, like, you take out one piece, I mean, the whole story falls apart. But one thing you really want to take away is, like, each person acts three different ways to each person. If you notice that in the film. Like, you know, like Cynthia to John, or Cynthia to Anne, or Cynthia to Graham.
Yeah.
And then backwards, Anne to Graham, Anne to John, Anne to Cynthia. You know, like they're all. I mean, they all know each other enough to change their entire persona when they're in presence of these people.
You know what made me what put something in my head today was when the two sisters are talking, and I'm like, man, if I was banging my brother's wife. That'd be really hard to just be normal around. Just, hey, did you catch the Cowboys game on Sunday?
You gotta go. Yeah.
How do I gotta go. I just don't know how. I mean, but they play it off so well, and it just seems realistic. And yeah,
and I love the minimalist ending of the film. I love how it basically states everything that you thought it was going to happen, but it didn't just come right out and say it. It's a lot of implication, a lot of I mean, with the assumption that it's going the way that the narrative said, but the same can be told for the beginning of the film as well, where you visually kind of put the pieces together of who these people are, while she's talking about her anxiety with the trash problem, and so I think that's just part of the great writing as well, is adding that visual element to tell the story. So by the time the monologue about the trash is over, we're all caught up. And the story can progress. And it was a very modern story about modern lovers.
Yeah.
And it wasn't classic. It wasn't traditional. It wasn't,
And it wasn't as sexual and raunchy as you would assume.
Right.
With the title, with the subject matter, even in the writing, you're like, I mean, this could have been way more
like
going on. I mean, there's really not even any
tons
nudity.
of sex, but just no nudity. Yeah.
There's there's some implied things, of course, but there's some really weird, sexual conversations that are on, not a normal subject. People wanting to videotape,
right?
Women talking about sexual encounters and video
masturbation.
In it, and using it for their pleasure.
God, masturbation.
Yeah, I mean,
that was the big one. That I guess back in '89, you just did not talk about masturbation.
And that's the kind of the whole, there's a lot of that talk about it in this, and how, but it's just it seemed like it was more of a early to mid 90s.
Yeah,
film.
like I said, yeah, it's the most 90s 80s film ever made.
I think that's why Soderbergh, like you said, he won the Palme d'Or at Cannes and
time.
Took off from there and had an amazing career. Because if you're in your early 20s and write something like this, you got a good writing skill set.
Right.
There.
I mean, it seems like he had something on his mind. Maybe he was the one that wronged somebody. Maybe I forget. If you were to insert Steven Soderbergh into this real situation, where would he fall? It's a good question. But yes, I highly enjoyed the film, and I can't wait to rate this thing. You want to go first? You want me to go first on this one?
Go ahead. Let me hear what you
Man,
got.
the expectation was pretty high on this one for Sex, Lies, and Videotape. I'd always heard about it. I knew all the accolades. I knew it was, the Palme d'Or at Cannes, and it was Miramax's first, major distribution deal. It was a groundbreaker. But watching it did, just like Weird Science. It's just kind of a little bit dated. Where the situations, the communication, the fact that they're highlighting these points to be strictly taboo. It kind of takes away from the film when you add years to it. If it like you talked about the realism of the dialogue, and it was, but there were those buzzwords in the film that really just that lets you know that we are talking about adult themes, But you needed those movies to break through those barriers, and those are the ones that just get caught up in the fucking in the barbed wire whenever everybody else can get through, and flourish in those avenues. You got to have that one that kind of breaks the wall down and it bridges the gap between the mystery thriller and the sexual thriller, and making it to where you don't have to show tits and have a good thriller. Like you can have a good thriller, no tits, and it still be compelling with a lot of great performances. And so with that in mind, I got to give this film one more than Weird Science. I'm going to give it a 9.4. I had a fantastic double feature this time around. It has flaws, but not a whole lot. I think that this movie can be remade, even in a digital age, and it still makes sense, because it's about just interpersonal relationships and how close you can get to that emotional place. And then the expectations of your partner and all those other things that come with it. These are all explored in this movie, and it's only 99 minutes. I mean, so it's very, very good. So 9.4 to me. Yeah.
Well said. Yeah. I didn't know anything about this film more than about a week and a half ago. I remember you'd mentioned it when we were hashing shit up before Fear 4. But so not knowing much about it, not looking into it, knowing it's a Soderbergh film, so maybe I had a little bit. I like his stuff, but I was pretty blown away from the beginning. I knew what I was getting into, though, about 20 minutes, 30 minutes in. It's so dialogue heavy. It is a character piece. It's just about a small group of people that are in this, love triangle thing. But man, it kept me completely engulfed in the story. I love that it's clean, crisp, an hour and a half, hour 40, whatever. It gets to the point. The acting. I mean, if you're a James Spader fan, I had never even heard of this. I mean, good Lord, when he's talking about the scene where he's talking about how can I don't even know myself, so how can I explain it to you?
Oh my God.
Good.
Swimming in it. Oh my God, dude.
I don't know who won the Oscar that year, but Spader at least should have been nominated. Was he?
That's the old James Spader. That's the old James Spader panty dropper right there.
Great set of hair on that.
How can I expect to explain myself? And even I haven't figured it out yet. Oh my God, that's a great line. Oh my God, it's so mysterious. Yeah.
I mean, but there's a lot. I tried to put myself back in it because there is a lot of sexual tones in this that were just not they were totally taboo, like you were saying in '89. To say you're impotent,
God.
You can only get off videotapes. I mean, recording stuff.
Yeah.
With the thing was probably a brand, at home stuff was probably brand new.
That story that
so it was new and kinky and all that. So yeah, I have to give it its dues. I think it's like a solid 8.4. I think just because it's a small budget film, I think that some of the sound was good. It was subtle. The sound, the music, there was
very
elements of it. It was
stuff.
I thought it was synthy and great and moody. But I don't know. I just don't think it's, for me, a 9.0-esque movie. But it's. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I'm glad that you put it on the list. I probably wouldn't have. I've never heard of it or would have watched it anyway.
I mean, it didn't have a lot of grandeur to it. I mean, but the architecture, the modern part of it was there. And then you got to see the modesty side of it as well with Cynthia and Graham. I don't know why I'm defending this movie. I gave it a 9.4. I mean, shit. I've said what I need to say.
Yeah,
but yeah, so that's Sex, Lies, and Videotape, guys. And I see we're running around the 2-hour mark, so we are going to go ahead and wrap things up here. I'm not sure what we have planned, like definite stuff. I know we're talking about another Cage episode.
I was going to say, we've got a Stephanie in the Cage episode we need to hit up. I was going to try to maybe throw in, maybe not the week of Thanksgiving or the day before, but the week before or after, do some type of holiday. We did Planes and Trains last year, and that's what made me think of the holidays this year. So I'll be watching that one here in a week. But
we'll be talking about it.
Yeah, we're gonna. Yeah, definitely. We've got stuff.
And try and get the Weird Al movie in. Maybe we'll talk about it sometime in the near future. But yeah, so that about wraps things up, guys. I just wanted to say, well, let me start this outro music here. Yeah, okay. Just wanted to say, for Ryland Johnson, my name is Charlie Thompson, and we have been spitting the real shit. We'll see you guys next time.
Peace out, y'all.
I was moving nice and slow.